Okay, let's really get into this. Imagine, right, there's this character in the Bible, and get this. No recorded father, no mother, no family tree, no beginning, no end. Seems impossible, doesn't it?
It really does.
This figure, he just sort of appears, blesses Abraham. Abraham gives him a tithe, and poof, gone.
Yeah.
Vanishes.
It's genuinely one of the Bible's most mind-bending mysteries. It really makes you stop and think, challenges kind of the standard way we look at biblical figures.
Mind-bending is the word. And this mystery man, we now know, is Melchizedek. His story, I mean, it's right there in Genesis, but it's sparked debates for, well, centuries. When we look at the sources, what are the main things scholars are really trying to figure out about him?
Well, the big questions really circle around who he was. You know, could he have been Christ appearing in the Old Testament? What's the deal with this eternal priesthood he holds?
Okay.
And maybe most intriguingly, how does this ancient secret actually tell us something surprising about the future? And that's really our mission today in this deep dive. We're going to unpack these sources, try to get a handle on who Melchizedek was, what his priesthood signifies, and how this old story points to some really profound truths about what might be coming. Think of it as maybe a shortcut to getting up to speed on one of the Bible's most mysterious, but also really impactful stories.
Okay, let's paint the picture first, because the context here is, well, pretty intense. We're talking ancient times, fierce battles, kingdoms clashing constantly.
A really turbulent era.
Exactly. And you've got this epic conflict, 9 kings basically going at it. On one side, there's this powerful guy, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, leading this sort of oppressive alliance.
Yeah, a major regional power.
And on the other side, 5 kings, including the rulers of Sodom and Gomorrah, are fighting back, trying to shake off his control.
And this wasn't just some minor skirmish. We're talking about a major struggle for dominance, for control over trade routes, resources. It really shaped that whole ancient Near East landscape.
So in the middle of all this fighting and chaos, Abraham's nephew, Lot, gets captured, swept up in the conflict.
Right, caught in the crossfire.
But then comes the surprise. Abraham, who's basically a patriarch, not a king, doesn't have an army in the traditional sense.
Just his household, essentially.
Right. He gathers his trained servants, launches this incredibly bold rescue mission against these powerful kings, gets Lot back, and wins this, well, stunning victory.
It was a huge upset. It really established Abraham not just as a survivor, but as a force to be reckoned with, someone clearly favored, perhaps divinely. His reputation definitely grew after that.
And it's right then, at this peak moment, Abraham's returning victorious, that Melchizedek shows up.
Out of absolutely nowhere.
King of Salem, priest of the Most High God, no fanfare, no backstory, no introduction in the text. He just is there, and he brings bread and wine.
Yeah, that detail, bread and wine, seems simple, almost mundane.
Right.
But the sources really emphasize this. It's packed with prophetic weight, hinting at things far, far down the road.
And what's baffling, as you mentioned, is the genealogy thing. The Bible tracks lineages so carefully for almost everyone else. You know, who begat whom, generation after generation.
Meticulously, it's central to establishing identity, inheritance, covenant promises.
But for Melchizedek, nothing. Zero. No father, no mother listed, no descendants mentioned. He appears, does his thing, and then just fades from the historical record.
It's such a deliberate silence, isn't it? It practically screams that he's different, that his origin isn't rooted in the normal human story.
It's like the text itself is putting a giant question mark next to him. So this silence, what does it tell us?
It suggests, well, a profound uniqueness, an existence perhaps outside of or maybe above the typical human lineage that the Bible is otherwise so careful to record. It sets him completely apart.
So who was he then? This king-priest figure appearing before even the law of Moses existed. The sources say his name itself is a huge clue, Melchizedek.
Right. In Hebrew, Melchizedek, it translates literally as king of righteousness.
King of righteousness. Not just a righteous king, but his title embodies it.
Exactly. It's not just describing his actions, it's declaring his very nature. It connects him directly to God's own character, suggesting his authority wasn't just political, but divine, fundamentally different from other earthly rulers.
Wow. So his authority wasn't based on conquest or dynasty.
It seems inherent, maybe established from, well, elsewhere. And beyond King of Righteousness, he's also called the King of Peace.
Because he ruled Salem.
Precisely. Salem is directly related to the Hebrew word shalom, peace. So King of Righteousness and King of Peace, powerful titles.
And Salem. That name rings a bell, obviously. Jerusalem wasn't yet the Israeli capital we know. But this Salem, this place Melchizedek ruled, existed long before that.
Yes, and the sources point this out as incredibly significant. It's one of the earliest mentions of the location that would eventually become Jerusalem, the spiritual heart of everything, the city of God.
So Melchizedek reigning there isn't just some random historical footnote.
Not at all. It's seen as foreshadowing. It connects his reign, way back then, to God's larger plan for that specific place, the future site of the temple, the city where Christ would ultimately minister and, according to prophecy, reign. It's like a little glimpse, a shadow of something much bigger to come.
Okay, so Abraham wins this huge battle, comes back loaded with spoils. He could have been hailed as a great warrior king himself.
He had every right, by the customs of the time.
But instead, when he meets Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, Abraham bows to him and voluntarily gives him a tenth of everything he recovered.
And this moment is theologically massive. Just pause and think about the timing.
Yeah.
The law of Moses didn't exist. The whole Levitical system, priests from the tribe of Levi, the mandatory tithes, that's all centuries in the future.
Okay, right.
Yet here's Abraham, the patriarch, the father of faith, the one God chose to start this whole lineage, and he's willingly giving a tenth, recognizing the authority of this mysterious priest king.
So what's the implication there? If Abraham, the father of the faithful, submits to Melchizedek.
It tells you Melchizedek possessed a spiritual authority superior to Abraham's. Abraham, the receiver of the promises, is acknowledging someone greater. This priest wasn't even an Israelite, obviously, not from any known priestly line established later.
That really turns things on their head.
It does. And the crucial takeaway the sources highlight is this. If Abraham submits to Melchizedek, then the entire Levitical priesthood, which descends from Abraham through Levi, must inherently be, well, secondary, subordinate to Melchizedek's order.
So the familiar Old Testament priesthood wasn't the ultimate system.
Exactly. It was important, it served its purpose under the law, but Melchizedek's priesthood existed before the law, operated under a different, perhaps more direct divine covenant. It suggests the Levitical system was always meant to be temporary, a sort of placeholder, a shadow of something greater, as Hebrews puts it.
In that detail, again, the bread and wine. Melchizedek doesn't just receive the tithe, he offers Abraham bread and wine. You said it echoes later.
It echoes loudly, millennia later, at one of the most pivotal moments in human history. We'll definitely circle back to that connection. It's profound.
Okay, so fast forward centuries. King David is writing the Psalms.
Yeah, long after Melchizedek has vanished from the scene.
And in Psalm 110, verse 4, David writes this incredibly cryptic line. God says to someone, "You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek."
Right. A stunning declaration.
But who's God talking about? It couldn't be David himself. He was a king from Judah, not a priest. And the Levitical priests, well, they definitely weren't priests forever. They served and then they died.
Precisely. So this prophecy couldn't apply to anyone David knew, anyone under the existing law. It was clearly pointing forward to a future figure.
Someone who would be a priest, but not like the Levites. Someone whose priesthood would be eternal, like Melchizedek supposedly was.
And this remained a bit of a puzzle for centuries. Who is this future priest in Melchizedek's order? Until the New Testament shines a spotlight right on it. The New Testament writers, particularly the author of Hebrews, explicitly state that this prophecy finds its ultimate fulfillment in Jesus Christ.
But wait, Jesus was from the tribe of Judah, like David? The law strictly said priests had to be from Levi.
Exactly the point. Under the Mosaic law, Jesus was disqualified from the priesthood. So how could he be the high priest?
Ah, so that's when Melchizedek comes back in.
Precisely. Jesus doesn't become a priest according to Levi's order. He becomes high priest according to the order of Melchizedek, a higher, heavenly, eternal order that transcends the earthly, temporary Levitical system. And Hebrews emphasizes God sealed this with an oath, making it permanent and unchangeable.
Okay, that connects the dots. But it also opens up an even wilder possibility, doesn't it? If Jesus' priesthood is like Melchizedek's, could they somehow be the same?
That's the next level, and it's where things get really fascinating. The author of Hebrews, in chapter 7, verse 3, gives this absolutely unparalleled description of Melchizedek. Listen to this. Without father or mother, without genealogy, without beginning of days or end of life, resembling the Son of God, he remains a priest forever.
Wow, that doesn't sound like any normal human being.
Not at all. And who does that description perfectly fit?
Jesus Christ, eternal, divine origin.
Exactly, the eternal Son of God. His ministry originates not on earth, but in heaven. This incredible description in Hebrews has led many scholars throughout history and today to seriously consider the idea that Melchizedek wasn't just a type of Christ, but was actually a Christophany.
A Christophany meaning?
A pre-incarnate appearance of Christ himself in the Old Testament, before Bethlehem, before the manger.
So Abraham didn't just meet some mysterious Canaanite king priest.
He might have actually encountered the Son of God, received a blessing directly from him, and recognized his supreme authority by giving the tithe. That interpretation radically shifts the whole meaning of that Genesis encounter.
That is a very powerful thought. But surely there are other ideas about who he was. What if he wasn't Christ?
Oh, absolutely. The mystery has definitely generated other theories. One very old one, popular among some Jewish rabbis, was that Melchizedek was actually Shem, Noah's son.
Shem? How does that work?
Well, Shem lived an incredibly long life, according to Genesis. Genealogically, it's possible he could have still been alive in Abraham's time. As the head of the righteous line after the flood, maybe he acted as a priest for the Most High God.
Okay, I can see the logic there. But what's the catch?
The big catch is Hebrews 7 again. It explicitly says Melchizedek was without genealogy. But Shem, his genealogy is right there in Genesis, very clearly recorded. Father, descendants, the whole thing.
So that's a direct contradiction. That makes the Shem theory pretty difficult to hold based on Hebrews.
It's a major hurdle, yes. Another idea that's been floated is that Melchizedek was an angel appearing in human form.
Like the angels who visited Abraham before Sodom's destruction.
Sort of like that, yeah. Angels did appear as men. If Melchizedek were an angel, he naturally wouldn't have an earthly father, mother, or genealogy.
Okay, that addresses the genealogy part. But the sources point out he was a king ruling a real city, Salem. Do angels do that?
That's the main counter-argument. Angels in the Bible are messengers, warriors, worshippers. They aren't described as reigning monarchs over earthly kingdoms. So the angel theory also feels a bit incomplete to many.
So Christophany, Shem, angel, any other major contenders?
Well, the Christophany view, or something very close to it, a unique, direct divine manifestation, seems to align best with all the data points. The divine titles, King of Righteousness, Peace, receiving worshipful honor, the tithe from Abraham, the description in Hebrews about being eternal and resembling the Son of God.
And if it was Christ, appearing early.
It would mean Jesus was establishing the foundation of his eternal priesthood way, way back, long before the cross. It weaves his priestly work right into the earliest patriarchal stories.
Okay, so regardless of which specific theory someone leans towards, the main point seems to be that Melchizedek was absolutely not just some ordinary historical figure.
Not even close. He bursts onto the scene, performs this superior priestly role, foreshadows key elements, and vanishes. His very presence in the text seems designed to point beyond himself, directly towards Christ and a coming shift away from the entire Old Covenant system.
So his priesthood wasn't just a one-off event, it signaled something big coming.
Yes, it was a preview, a signpost pointing to a radical change. Think about it. For centuries under the Old Testament, the Levitical priesthood was the only game in town. You had to be a descendant of Levi to serve in the temple, offer sacrifices, mediate between God and the people.
Right, that was the whole system.
But it was always understood, or perhaps hinted through figures like Melchizedek, that this system was limited. It relied on human priests who sinned, who died. The sacrifices had to be repeated endlessly. It was inherently temporary.
Until Christ, who, as we said, wasn't from Levi, but from Judah.
Correct. And his priesthood, being in the order of Melchizedek, isn't based on earthly ancestry, but on divine appointment in his own eternal nature. He is the priest forever.
So the ultimate takeaway then is that Christ's priesthood doesn't just continue the old one, it fundamentally replaces and surpasses it.
Completely surpasses it. That's the core message in Hebrews. Instead of endless animal sacrifices, Christ offers himself once for all, perfect sacrifice.
Okay.
Instead of ministering in an earthly tabernacle or temple made with hands,
He ministers in heaven itself.
right, in the true sanctuary. And crucially, unlike human priests who eventually die, Christ lives forever to intercede for his people. It's a permanent, perfect, eternally effective priesthood.
And now let's bring back that bread and wine. You said it was a profound connection.
It really is. Melchizedek greets the victorious Abraham with bread and wine. Millennia later, on the night before his death, what does Jesus do?
He takes bread and wine, the Last Supper.
And says, "This is my body." This is my blood. The parallels are just undeniable. Melchizedek's simple act in Genesis becomes this powerful symbol, pointing directly towards Christ instituting the central sacrament of the new covenant. It's like Melchizedek was setting the table prophetically for what Christ would fulfill.
Wow. So Melchizedek isn't just about the past or even Christ's first coming. Does his story tell us anything about the future?
It absolutely does. Because his priesthood is eternal, it's part of God's plan that stretches across all of time, right to the very end. And that plan climaxes with Christ's ultimate, absolute reign.
How so? Connect those dots.
Well, think about Melchizedek's titles. King of righteousness, King of peace. Now think about how the book of Revelation describes Jesus' final reign.
As King of kings, Lord of lords, ruling with justice, bringing peace.
Exactly. The very characteristics embodied by Melchizedek find their ultimate expression in Christ's eternal kingdom. Just as Melchizedek ruled Salem, the ancient Jerusalem, Christ will reign over the new Jerusalem, the perfect city where, as Revelation says, there's no more sin, no death, no tears.
A kingdom of perfect righteousness and peace.
And because Christ's priesthood in Melchizedek's order is heavenly and eternal, think about what that means for the future state.
No need for earthly temples or human priests anymore.
Precisely. In the new heaven and new earth, Jesus himself is the temple, and he intercedes directly and perfectly for his people forever. Access to God will be complete, unmediated by any temporary system. His eternal priesthood guarantees an endless kingdom and unbroken fellowship with God.
It's amazing how it all ties together from Genesis right through to Revelation. This figure who appears so briefly near the beginning.
It goes right to the very end. Everything that started unfolding back with Abraham finds its complete fulfillment in the return and reign of Jesus Christ.
What a journey indeed. From this deeply enigmatic figure, Melchizedek, someone without any recorded history,
to becoming this incredibly rich foreshadowing of Jesus Christ and his eternal work.
Yeah. Melchizedek, once this sort of biblical riddle really does point straight to Jesus and God's overarching plan for all of us. His eternal priesthood, his reign over Salem. It all points to this kingdom that lasts forever.
A kingdom of righteousness and peace.
So here's something to really chew on. If Melchizedek's story unveils this eternal priesthood and a kingdom without end centered on Christ, what does knowing that change about how you see your own connection, your own access to God right here, right now?